What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down how you can avoid injuries. So what we're going to be doing is showing separate knee injuries and then going over some different exercises, drills that you guys can do to prevent these injuries and prevent these bad habits that have caused the knee injuries in these examples. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope we could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver or a quarterback and you guys would like to train with us this offseason, we are traveling out to 14 more states for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps this offseason. So check out that very first link in the description below if you're local to Orlando, Phoenix, Charlotte, Dallas, the DMV, St. Louis, Honolulu, Boston, Cleveland, Austin, Seattle, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles, California. We'd love to have you out to one of our offseason camps, 2 days, 8 hours of training. So very first link in that description below. Let's get started with this video. So now, first things first, we're going to be showing, like I said, I'm going to show you guys an example of a knee injury. We're going to talk about the bad habit, what caused this knee injury, and then some different gym exercises and on-field drills to improve that or to make sure it doesn't happen. So this is an example from Jameson Williams, and he has a classic example of reaching outside your frame and reaching on a cut. Now, again, I don't make this video to knock the guys because, again, going through a knee injury, tearing your ACL, having any kind of injury involving your knee is extremely painful, a long process, and a grueling process to come back from. So I don't say this to knock this guy. I'm just saying this so you guys can hopefully avoid making these same mistakes, because a lot of people are hesitant to make cuts, hesitant to cut at a fast speed because they are afraid to injure themselves. So a lot of times what wide receivers do, what any football player does, is when they're trying to cut, how many times have you seen players have this real long, exaggerated step? They drag their back foot in the turf. All this turf shoots up in the air. I'm sure everybody can't even count on two hands the amount of times that they've seen that. They've seen it so many times because so many guys do it. And guys do that because they lack leg strength, knee stability, and ankle stability to be able to cut inside of their frame. So everybody says that, oh, you want to cut inside your frame, you don't want to reach. Now, a lot of guys don't have the strength to be able to do that. So to be able to cut, to be able to change direction, they will reach outside their frame because they will strike the ground on their heel, and that slows their momentum down. But when you strike the ground on your heel, that puts an incredible amount of pressure on your Achilles, on your ankle, and on your knee. And all three of these knee injuries that we're going to be looking at today, fellas, the guys strike the ground with their heel first. And that can cause a ton of injuries because when you're moving at a high speed and this foot gets outside your frame, you strike on the heel, your leg extends, that is a recipe for a knee injury. Now, again, I know he's not trying to do this. I know he's not thinking about doing this, but so many wide receivers will do this. So many athletes do this in general. So what are some things that you could do to prevent this? Because like I said, athletes will do it due to a lack of leg strength, ankle stability, and knee stability. They don't have stability in that one single leg. So now what can you do? So now, this is an exercise from a strength program. This is a college. And what is this guy doing? He's doing single leg kind of pistol squats, right? Now, what does that do? That strengthens that single leg position that we need to consistently get to when I'm trying to make a cut. So if you're running, this guy's probably a running back. He's built more like a running back or maybe a slot receiver, whatever it is. But either position, have to cut, right? You got to cut a lot. You got to be able to run fast. You got to hit the hole hard. You got to be able to put the brakes on. And if you don't have the strength and the balance and the stability in that single leg, you're not going to be able to do it efficiently. You're not going to be able to make that cut inside of your frame. So doing exercises like this builds strength in that position. Because you see, he's not doing this single leg squat with his foot 3 feet out in front of him, like how a wide receiver sometimes will make a cut or when they snap down. He's got that foot inside of his frame, and he's just squatting down. He's building that strength in that leg, that one leg strength, and he's building that stability in his knee and his ankle and just overall balance, right? That is what it takes, fellas. Those are the things that you have to do. Because, I tell you all the time, don't reach on your cuts. Don't do this. Don't do that. You got to keep your cuts inside your frame. It's going to help you with balance. It's going to help you with explosion. But oftentimes, wide receivers will try to do that, but they're very weak when they do that. They don't change direction fast. They can't slow down when they do that because they lack the strength and the stability that is required in order to do that. Now, notice how when he's doing this, again, his weight's not distributed on his heel. It's not like he's sitting back. The weight's distributed on the middle ball of his foot because that is where you want to strike the ground. That is the safest place to strike the ground because a lot of times guys will say, I've heard this phrase before, oh, the heels are the brakes, like brakes in a car, right? You slowing down on your heels is what's gonna slow down your speed. That's a very, very inefficient way to stop. If you're a wide receiver and you're at the top of the route, you want to to drop exactly like this. You want to drop on the ball of your foot. Your whole foot can be down, but your weight is distributed on the toes, on the middle arch of your foot, and you are dropping at your butt because you have that leg strength, that stability, and that knee stability. So fellas, doing an exercise like this, any one-legged exercise in the gym is going to help you. You don't have to do it with a plate. You don't have to do it to like a pad right here. You could put your foot up on a bench. You do that single leg split squat. You could do pistol squats like this. You could do front squats. You could do back squats, anything that's going to strengthen those legs. But I love those one-legged exercises. Now, again, this is a gym exercise. What can you do on the field to maybe help this? So this is an example of a football player working one-legged hops over some hurdles. Now, I personally like to do stuff like this with all the athletes that I train, even quarterbacks, even wide receivers. I love having them jump and land on one leg because if you have incorrect form, you reach too far outside your frame, you're not going to have any balance. So let's watch what this guy does. He jumps over the hurdle, sticks it. Every single cut that he makes, he is landing inside of his frame. Because if he were to land, like let's say he was jumping over these hurdles and he were to land too far, let's say he jumped way too far outside of his frame and his body stayed right here, but his foot was way out here. He would fall. He would fall back towards the inside because his foot got outside of his frame. He would have no balance. So doing this type of exercise, you striking the ground like this is exactly how you have to strike the ground when you're at the top of a cut, when you're at the top of a route, you're running with the ball in your hands. You have to keep that foot inside your frame. And doing these exercises that often seem boring to a lot of people is how you strengthen that position. You need to get comfortable being in this position inside your frame. I need to develop strength in my leg, stability in my leg while being inside of my frame so I could prevent an injury, but also so I could be a more efficient player on the field. Because think about this, I know most of you are wide receivers, running backs, right? If I'm running like a post route, for example, and I cut at the top of that post, and I could get comfortable, and I could get quick, and I could get very sudden at making a cut like this with the foot inside my frame. I don't have to reach way outside of my frame. That's incredibly tough for a DB to guard. Because if a DB's in a backpedal and he's backpedaling, you're able to just make that quick cut, change direction, and not have to reach out, drag the back foot, and give this big indicator with my chest. That's so tough for him to guard. So you guys developing strength in this position will not only help you be safer with your cuts, be more efficient with your cuts, but it'll help you sell your routes better because you don't have to have this big indicator when making a cut. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. So this is a great drill. Anything that involves you hopping one leg. If you don't have these hurdles, maybe set up some cones. Set up cones on like a 45-degree angle. You hop. You hop from side to side and you try to stick it for a split second and keep that foot inside your frame. Believe me, fellas, some of you might be thinking, oh, that's super easy. How does that even help? Trust me, there are so many athletes out there, especially the young guys who lack leg strength. They cannot do that. They will try to jump and they will not be able to hold it. Everybody's like, oh, I just have bad balance. That's not real. You can develop your balance. Yeah, you might have bad balance, but it's because you lack strength, stability in that single leg. Okay, so let's get to this next injury here. So this is an example from John Metchi. Kind of the same scenario. He strikes the ground on his heel and then his toe. But mechanically, he does something wrong here. Just like in that last example from Williams, where he reaches, Metchi tries to get out of the break too fast with his upper half. He doesn't keep his feet inside of his frame to drive him out. And that is what ultimately leads to his knee injury. So let's play this full speed. So he's at the top of the break. He starts to snap down, right? So he snaps down, but you see his body tries to get out of it before his feet do, and that leads to an extension of his leg, striking with the heel and the toe, and that's what leads to that injury. So you see how he's going into this thing. He drops into the break. This is great. He's dropping his butt. His chin's going to his knee. This is the position that every wide receiver coach wants their wide receivers to get to. A drop at the hips. You're pulling a string from your chin to your knee. That's where we want to be. But now, after we break down, what a lot of wide receiver coaches don't talk about. Everybody talks about, oh, you got to have violent hips. You got to have violent hips. But what happens after that? How do I get out of the break after I have violent hips? And you need to focus on being powerful with your feet. Your feet need to drive you out of the break. So when we drop into this break here, and he's dropping, but now he starts to turn. And this happens to a lot of wide receivers on routes like comebacks, routes like curls, where the quarterback's throwing it early. They're trying to get out to be able to see the ball, but their feet never stop moving. Their feet get outside of their frame and their body's trying to go the opposite direction. which leads to their feet ultimately being outside their frame, which causes an injury. So let's watch what happens here. He's trying to turn his body. He's not letting his feet drive him out. So what happens? His body starts to turn. He maybe starts to lean a little too far back. He's about to plant, but watch what he hits first. He hits with his heel first, leg extends, and because his leg extends, his leg extends because he strikes the ground heel toe, and that foot is outside of his frame because his body is trying to leave. That's what causes that knee to pop. And again, fellas, I don't say this to knock him. I don't say this to critique him like, oh, it's your fault that you tore your ACL. It happens. It happens to so many guys. I'm just saying this so you can prevent this habit if you know you have this habit. It's a safer way to do things. But we never want to strike the ground heel first. And when we strike the ground heel first and that foot's outside my frame, that is what can lead to all kinds of injury. So now, again, this is a different break. The last example was more like a cut. He's got the ball in his hands. He's trying to make a quick cut and slip underneath. This is a different break. This is him like snapping down at the top of a route. So anytime that you are doing drill work, fellas, you should be thinking about little details like keeping your feet inside your frame. So this is CD Lamb working a drill at training camp. This is as simple as it gets. And notice these last 3 drills that I've given you guys, that gym exercise, that hurdle drill where they're hopping over, and this drill right here. Are there any obstacle courses set up with like 84 cones where you have to cut, do all this zigzag stupid crap? No. It's simple stuff, fellas. It's simple stuff that is efficient. It's how you run the drill. Because again, if you just half-ass this drill and come out of this break, like I'm about to show you right now with CD Lamb, like it's a simple drill, but he gets a lot out of it because he treats it realistically. He doesn't half-ass it because when you guys half-ass the drills, that's what leads to half-ass effort on the field. So let's watch what he does here. When he makes this break, I want you to pay attention to where his feet are. His feet drive him out. His feet stay inside of his frame. He's going up into this break. He's letting his hips change direction for him, but his feet stay inside of his frame. He is driving off of his feet, trying to keep them underneath him. Fellas, when you do these warm-up drills, you do a warm-up routine. You don't just go out onto the field and just start running routes. You do drills like this to lead to your routes. But every single drill that you should do should translate to a live game scenario. It should translate to an actual full route because there's no point in doing it if you can't translate it. So him keeping his feet inside of his frame is building a good habit. So many guys, what they'll do on this drill, they'll run up to it and they just try to snap their head around as fast as they can and their feet get outside their frame, but they're not going to slip. They're not going to hurt themselves because it's a 5-yard drill. But when you do that 15 yards downfield, that is what can lead to a slip, an injury, and something very, very bad can happen on the route. So fellas, doing drills, any type of drill work, any type of cone work is fine. If you set up 2 cones and you literally just run in a circle around the cones twice, but you focus on dropping your hips, letting your feet drive you out, working on mechanics, that is what will translate more so than having 24 drills out there and you're just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth and getting almost a cardio workout out of it. You have to treat the drills realistically. And you treating the drills realistically is what leads to prevention of injury. Okay, fellas? So make sure we are not that guy that is going through drills unrealistic, and we are focused on doing as much as I can in the offseason, as much as I can when I'm doing drill work to practice good habits. Okay, so now I want to show this example from Odell. I don't think this has, honestly, I think this is just a bad habit that he has developed in terms of when he tries to put the brakes on, when he tries to cut, because I'm going to show another example of him with the Cleveland Browns doing kind of the exact same thing where he had to come out of the game due to an injury. I don't know exactly what the injury was. I don't know if it was an ankle. I know it had something to do with his leg, though. So obviously, I'm sure everybody's seen this clip. Everybody's familiar with this clip. There have been a million different trainers, coaches that have broken this down, explaining the reason why he hurt his knee, and it's the same thing that we were talking about. Watch how he strikes the ground. You see how he hits the ground, and I know it cuts off a little bit, but his heel hits the ground first. His leg extends, right? When it extends out, that is what causes that knee, and that's what causes any kind of injury. When we strike with the heel first, and even though it's slight, that energy shoots up. He's still moving forward. His knee still kind of maintains a bend, but on the strike, that right there, where that foot flattens and the heel hits first, that is what causes an extension, that is what causes a lockout, and that is what hurts the knee. Now, again, like I said, this is nothing he's probably thought about. This is nothing he's repped. He's just catching the ball and putting the brakes on. So it's a bad habit, and bad habits are developed from having bad habits in the drill work that I do and practice that I do. And it's not simply focusing on the little details, right? So let's look at this other example here of him with Cleveland, right? Very similar situation. He's running, trying to make a tackle. I think this was after an interception. I want you to pay attention to his left knee here. So watch what happens when he steps. Puts the brakes on with his heel, leg extends, and you see that's a very, very, very risky and kind of could be a tough injury. Because you see when he hits the ground, what hits first? His heel, right? And when that heel hits first and then the toe slaps down, that causes that extension and that puts a ton of pressure, not only on like your Achilles, your ankle, but also your knee. And again, fellas, that is where the injuries come from. Improper foot strike, striking outside your frame, all of those things lead to very, very bad habits. So now, how can we work on things like that? So when you're doing drill work, what I like to tell my wide receivers to focus on is stay on the balls of your feet. Because if you stay on the balls of your feet when you make a cut, I'm not saying you have to cut off of your tippy toes. That forces you to not go heel toe and keep your cut inside your frame. So let's look at this Alabama wide receiver working speed cuts here. When he's working this speed cut drill, I want you to pay attention to where his foot strikes. So when he makes this cut, everything's inside his frame. He's not cutting heel first though. Cuts again on the next one. What hits the ground first? The ball of the foot hits the ground first. He is not striking with the heel first. The ball of the foot is hitting the ground first because now that cut can stay inside his frame. He has some speed off of it. He's not reaching. He still maintains a knee bend. All of those things is what can lead to a safe cut. Because fellas, everybody talks about, I don't want to cut full speed. I'm afraid to snap down because I don't want to hurt myself. Fellas, guys have been doing this for years without hurting themselves. Jerry Rice, all these elite wide receivers, Devontae Adams, guys, Stephon Diggs, guys that have probably never had a knee injury before because the details matter. The details in your motion, the details in the way you run routes, your foot strike, all of those little details that you think might be stupid and they're just, it's too much. It's too much to think about. All those little things matter. Because it's all about developing good habits. And if you can consistently develop good habits with the drill work that you do, the gym work that you do like we just saw, you will have less injuries. Fellas, injuries happen. I get it. And sometimes freak injuries happen where you can't prevent it. But if we can do everything in my power to prevent injuries that I can control, it comes from things like this. Doing the proper gym work, doing the proper field work, focusing on the little details like cutting on the ball of your foot on any type of speed cut drill can help you prevent that injury. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope this helped you out. I hope this gave you some value and taught you a few new things. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. And again, fellas, if you'd like to come out and train with us, we are coming out to 14 more states this offseason for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. Check out that very first link in the description below if you're interested, fellas. I'll see you guys next time.